Right, good afternoon everybody and welcome to your latest Chartered Institute of Housing webinar. I'm Rebecca Clark, I'm the Head of Membership here at the CIH and I'm delighted to be joined today by a number of staff and tenants from Home Group as they talk about the power of reverse mentoring. So thank you all for joining us. We are quickly going to go through a few instructions on how you can join in with the webinar today and interact. Just in case some of you haven't joined us before on any of our webinars, and it will be recorded and sent round to everybody afterwards anyway, just in case you do have any problems. So we have got up to an hour today, so plenty of time, as I say, to ask questions, and I'll show you how you can do that in a moment. It is being recorded, as I mentioned as well, and will be sent round to everybody afterwards and will be available. Should your colleagues want to watch afterwards, it will be recorded and put on the website as well. So if you've had a really nice time, you can share it with your colleagues and encourage them to listen to as well. You should be able to see a panel on your screen at the moment that will tell you that I'm speaking. So if you can't hear anything, it always sounds ironic when I say this, but if you can see it on the screen and you are having any problems with any of the sound or anything like that, it sounds muffled or crackly, then please do use the hand icon on your panel to put it up there, and that will be the same throughout the webinar if you're experiencing any problems. We also have a questions box in there as well, so rather than waiting to the end and potentially forgetting your question and running the risk of that, you can type questions in at any time, and then at the end we'll prompt everybody for questions as well. If you want to ask your question verbally, we can also unmute you. So if you press the hand icon when you've got a question, we can get your mic switched on and then you can join in verbally as well. If the panel is getting in the way, because quite often it can do, of the slides, then you can use the orange arrow at the top of the panel there on the right hand side. Just click that and you'll see the panel slide in and out. So if you don't want it on during the webinar, you can just put that to one side and then click on it to bring it back again should you want to ask any questions or anything like that. Right, that's me done. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our colleagues from Home Group. So we have Renika.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to lead this bit of the webinar, talk you through a few slides that we've done, and also introduce the panel, because there's actually a panel of, I think there's now 5 of us today. The slide that you can see on the front there is myself. I'm one of the mentors, and then that's Matt, who's our Executive Director of Operations, who I mentor. And he doesn't really like that photo. I don't know why. I think it's lovely. So just to introduce you to the panel, obviously there's myself. I'm Involvement Manager at Home Group, so I look after customer involvement. And then we also have Megan Connor, who's our Customer Relations Officer, who's another mentor. Do you want to say hi, Megan?
Hi, everyone.
We have Becky Leonard-Dixon, who also works in my team. She's Assistant Involvement Advisor, and she's also a mentor. Do you want to say hi, Becky?
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Then we have Matt Forrest, who, as I already mentioned, was on the photograph, who's the Executive Director of Operations, and he's a mentee. Do you want to say hi, Matt?
Hello.
And last but not least, we have Simon Parker, our Director of IS, who's also a mentee. Do you want to say hello, Simon?
Hi there.
Great. Okay, so first of all, for those of you that don't know what reverse mentoring is, I thought it would be useful just to do a bit of an introduction. So traditionally, reverse mentoring is where younger, junior colleagues mentor more senior colleagues in an organisation. And that can be around anything from things like using social media, to anything really where we think that somebody new and young that's come into the organisation might have some fresh eyes and some fresh ideas. At Home Group, our reverse mentoring is where lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans plus colleagues from our LGBT employee network, which is called Pride at Home, mentor our allies. We've got a massive allies network at Home Group. There's over 600 colleagues who've signed up to be LGBT allies. When we looked at that group, allies tended to be generally more senior colleagues. than Pride at Home. So it seemed like a really good kind of scenario to set up reverse mentoring. All of our executive team are mentored at the moment from somebody from Pride at Home, which is great. The whole team are on board. And the mentors are generally operational colleagues, including some apprentices as well, but we're not necessarily younger, myself in particular. So where did it come from? I have mentioned Pride at Home, our employee network, and that's really where the idea came from. It was discussions at the at Pride at Home, at the employee network, about how we could raise awareness of LGBT issues at home group, and how we could build some really good relationships with our allies, because as I say, we've got 600 people signed up to be allies, and we're thinking, how can we really utilise that and maximise their support. So this was the idea that we came up with, and we thought we'd particularly like to mentor our senior leaders, which is why we started with the exec team. How does it work? So at Home Group, we recruit mentors from Pride at Home, and we've got about 100 members of Pride at Home, our LGBT network. So I put a message out to them all saying, we're, you know, from the discussions we've been having, we're ready now to set this up. Who's interested? And any of those 100 people can express an interest. Also, when they join Pride at Home, they fill out a survey monkey that asks if they're interested. So sometimes it's about going back to that and then targeting particular people. So once we've got our group of mentors, we then match the mentors with senior leaders, and that really depended on a number of factors. For some of our mentors, I think Megan being one of these, there was somebody in particular on the executive team that she thought she would really like to mentor, because she liked some of the things that he'd been saying on our social media platform. For some of us, it's about location. So it might be that one of the mentors says they're really happy to mentor, but they want to do that face-to-face, because we can do it over Skype as well. They want to do it face-to-face and they don't want to have to travel very far. So it might be that we find a senior leader in their location. For others, it might be a development opportunity. So I started mentoring Matt, and he actually became my boss's boss slightly a few months after that. So for me, that felt like a really good development opportunity. I had the ear of my boss's boss. So like I say, various reasons why we might match. For some of it as well, it's to find members of Pride at Home, the LGBT network, who are confident enough to mentor a senior leader. I mean, our senior leaders are fantastic and really friendly and really really easy to talk to. But I think for some maybe colleagues that haven't met some of our senior leaders, they do see it as a bit of something a little bit scary. So that's why we've not maybe had as many come forward to mentor our senior leaders. Then I send out, because I coordinate the reverse mentoring, I send out an introductory email to both the mentor and the mentee, just saying, welcome to reverse mentoring, give a little bit of information about the mentor, and then really leave it pretty much to the mentor and the mentee to set up their first meeting. I also send some guidelines, which aren't rules, they're just some ideas maybe for the first meeting, and just also a little bit of information about the kind of things that you can get out of reverse mentoring and what you might want to do in your first meeting, whether that's to do a little bit of your life story, but also agree what you both want to get out of that relationship. It's also up to that pair how often they want to meet as well, and whether they want to meet always in person or sometimes by Skype. They arrange that themselves. We've then been reviewing reverse mentoring. We've been running it now about 18 months, and we've been reviewing it every 6 months, and then we did a 12-month review as well, just to make sure that everybody's happy with how it's working, and also to learn as we go. I also try and check in with mentors to make sure everything's fine with them, if there's anything they want to ask. And sometimes I might also ask them to bring some things up with their mentees if there's something that's come up in the group in Pride at Home that we'd like our senior leaders to be aware of or like their views on. And then it says we survey every 12 months. We've not been quite running at 24 months yet, but at our 12-month point, we did do a survey, and we will be doing that again when the 24-month comes up. And again, that's just really useful learning for us to make sure it's all working and kind of learn from each other. So what do mentors get out of it? Some of this I've got from the survey and just some from speaking to some of our mentors. And what they've said is it's an opportunity to share real lived experience with someone who's ready to listen and learn. It's a chance to challenge stereotypes and raise awareness. It's a chance to educate and be part of valuable discussions where mutual learning can take place and be turned into positive action. It's not just about raising awareness, it's about identifying ways for growth and change. And it's an opportunity to call senior leaders into action. And I think this quote's actually from Becky, who said, "I love the idea of influencing how we support, recognise and highlight queer brilliance at Home Group, promoting how the queer community make us a better place to work and creating a safer environment for everyone."
Yes, that was from me.
Thanks, Becky. And now my slides have stuck. So I don't know if the other Becky can help with this. And maybe put the next slide up.
Bear with us one moment. We'll try and stick it.
I can add something while we're waiting, Renika, if that's okay.
Still the silence.
I will, if that's all right. I've been working with my mentee for almost a year, and we've sort of reached the point in our working relationship where we feel like I've passed on everything that I can. So we've agreed to switch it around a little bit, and she's offered me opportunities to shadow her for my development, and change the relationship into her mentoring me in certain aspects. So I've got loads out of it in regards to my confidence in working with senior leaders, what I've been able to learn about the organisation I work in and the different departments, and you know, actually learning from that exec director as well. So it's not just been about passing on that knowledge, it's very much been a two-way thing, which has been really important for my development and has built my confidence up so much that I applied for a leadership program this year and got it. And I don't think that would have been, I wouldn't have had the confidence in my own development that I have had if it hadn't have been for reverse mentoring. It's really helped in that respect.
Brilliant, thanks, Becky. And it has actually been really fantastic to watch your development as well and your increased confidence. Right, I think we're
right. We're back on. We're back on. You'll just have to tell me when to go on to the next slide, if that's okay, Renata. Are you ready to go on?
Yes, please. Next slide, please, then.
There we go. I'll be a glamorous assistant. It'll be fine.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We all need one of those. So again, we asked senior leaders what they got out of it, and if Matt or Simon, you want to chip in here, please do. But what they said in the survey is that what they've got out of it is the chance to listen and understand from another's point of view, to learn and to lead, turning intent into focused, effective action. Another one said to ask questions I never dared to, having that safe space to talk. The chance to hear what it's like across Home Group. A reminder that more needs to be done in society and that we have a responsibility to do more than just listen. We need to take action. And that senior managers have the power to change things, and the shadow they cast is so important. I don't know, Matt or Simon, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Well, it must have been Simon that said things, doing things, turning things into focused, effective action. That can't have been me. No, I think it's just a very good opportunity to unpick things and chat about things in a way that is pretty safe. You know, I've had two different mentors now that have brought different things, and I've been able to ask different sort of searching questions without, I guess, feeling like you're exposing your ignorance too much. And I guess some of the realizations that are on here are absolutely right. It's just in that, I guess as a white, middle class, middle-aged, pale, stale male exec, you know, we can make a difference, and what we do is noticed by people who are kind of so I guess sometimes feeling that everything isn't really on their side in the way it is for people like me, and I think that's been really valuable for me, you know.
Great,
Yeah, I
thanks.
broadly concur with what Matt says there. I mean, I look down this list and I would tick all of these. I know when you asked for feedback, I would recognise all of these as statements I made about it. Just to come back on something I think you said very earlier on, Renika, about us being volunteers. You know, we sort of all volunteered for this. I feel kind of partially volunteer. I think you prompted me with an email in the first place to say, do you want to do it? And it was one of those. So to what extent that's volunteering? It's, hey, you, do you want to do it? And I felt like I probably should. But I guess, like Matt said, you know, sort of it being that thing, firstly you go, okay, I haven't got time for this. My days are so busy as it is. I really don't have time to do this as well. I go, am I supposed to be that old conservative white bloke? And I'm starting to think, hey, I'm not that old. And, you know, and then I think the third bit, which was really interesting for me, was, do I really need this? I thought, well, I'm not homophobic. I ain't got a problem. I've got a couple of gay friends. You know, what's the issue we're trying to solve? And that was my starting point. But I said, hey, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I came at it with a rather than volunteering up front because I wanted to make a difference or I wanted to do these things. I just came at it with a bit of an open mind and said, well, I'll give it a go. I have found the whole experience incredibly positive, you know, to the point that I look down this list and say, I have learned so much. And in terms of, did I need it? This is, for me, is the crucial area. We've got a general election today, for anyone that hasn't been following the news. It's the difference between abstaining or voting. You know, before I was abstaining, I don't think I was part of society's problem with LGBT plus people, but I wasn't doing anything about the problem either. It was a lack of awareness. And what I felt this gave me is said, there are still issues out there. You know, there are issues that people face. And to Matt's point, as a leader, I can make a difference. I can make a difference in my organization, and I can make a difference beyond my organization because I'm out there on social media and network with other sort of CIOs and so on. So I went from an open mind to this has been a fabulous experience, which is why I'm here today, because I want to be able to say this was something we've done, which I think is really important and really powerful.
Brilliant, thank you, Simon. Shall we move on to the next slide, please, Becky? So we also asked about what people thought were the benefits to home group, and this was, we asked kind of all sorts of colleagues. We're currently number 17 in the Stonewall Top 100, and we do feel that reverse mentoring has helped us get there. We were able to provide loads of evidence for the Stonewall Top 100 and really kind of show that our leaders were inclusive and supportive and helping lead the way in LGBT inclusion at home group. So I think that definitely made a difference. It helps us recruit. We've got a good reputation externally for being inclusive. It promotes understanding and deeper relationships in the workplace. It encourages people to be their brilliant selves at work. It embeds the right attitudes and behaviours into our culture. It promotes visibility and discussion at all levels, which creates an open atmosphere where everyone can be comfortable. And it demonstrates the role we all play in making sure that all our colleagues feel at home group. Again, I don't know if panelists, if any of you have got anything to add to that.
It's Becky again. Hello. I didn't come out until I'd worked at home group for more than 3 years, and that's a direct result of some of the mentors in this program being role models. And I feel like I mentioned earlier about my confidence rising and me feeling better about working across other teams in the business, but I'm also feeling better in myself. I'm able to be myself, and that's something that is unique to At Home Group. I'm not able to be out in my own life fully with my family, but I am at Home Group, and that's a really important thing, that I can bring my full self to work when I can't even bring my full self to my mum's house. I find it really powerful and inspiring that I'm able to do that, and that's because there are so many amazing role models at Home Group and such a safe environment that's allowed to happen for me.
Great, thank you, Becky. Anybody else from the
Megan
panel want to
here.
add? Megan.
I just wanted to say we have a bit of a phrase that we've coined. We say, be yourself at home. And I think that really, truly reflects the culture that we have across the business. It's not just about our LGBT plus colleagues, of which I'm one of, so I'm gay. I've never had any problem in being myself completely at work here, but I also have lots of other intersectionalities, as do many of the colleagues that we work with, and I do really feel that I can totally be myself at home. As part of my relationship with my reverse mentoring partner, we discuss kind of all of the intersectionalities that both of us actually have, and how we can make sure that other people across the organisation and actually across the wider community, rather than just looking internally here, how we can encourage everybody to be themselves.
Brilliant, thank you, Megan. Should we move on to the next slide, please, Becky? So yeah, this was a question that we asked at a virtual conference that we did for Idaho Day this year. Really, again, at the mentors and mentees, about what do you do differently as a result of your reverse mentoring. Matt, you're quoted here. You said that my appreciation of the importance of positive action has developed. Becky, you said I challenge more, research more, and I've gained loads of confidence in working alongside senior colleagues. John, who's our Chief Financial Officer, said, I think more of others' perspectives, see things from their views. While many of us think we do this already, the truth is you can become passive in your support, which connecting with a mentor helps to correct. And Mark Henderson, our CEO, said he'd got his partner's employer to do this as well. So he's kind of spreading the word of reverse mentoring. I don't know, again, if anybody from the panel wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just building on what Simon and I both said, that they kind of, that sense of, I don't have a problem with any particular group of people, and I'm fairly very direct. I don't care what shape, size, colour, sexuality an individual has. If they're doing a good job, then that's great. And that was kind of, I guess, my attitude, which I've expressed a few times. And then actually, I think in order to get all that variety into and diversity into our colleagues, from our colleagues, I've realised that you sort of have to put a bit of effort in. But the return, which I think was what we were talking about on the previous slide, is that you just get a more interesting workforce that does more interesting stuff and has better ideas, and you get less groupthink. And if I walk into a room full of middle-aged white men, you sort of kind of think, did I get everyone's view here? And have we had the brightest, best thinking we could have from interesting angles? And I think unless you put a bit of effort into it, you don't get to this better place of having a really engaged and fun workplace that does new and interesting things.
Great, thank you. Should we move on to the next slide? Yeah, so just some top tips if you are thinking of setting up your own reverse mentoring program. The first one is just do it. I think we waited around for quite a while thinking we'd got to get it perfect. We've got to wait till we've got loads of mentors. We've got to wait until it was all set up perfectly. And then I think once I'd managed to get 3 pairs, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it now. And that was the best thing, because then people started talking about it, and then we got a lot more people signed up. So don't wait around, just do it. Keep it simple. Again, initially I thought I needed loads of guidelines and we need loads of things in place, and you don't really. Just some simple guidelines, keep it simple. Thirdly, don't be afraid to ask questions. I guess that's particularly for mentees. You know, mentors are more than happy to talk about most things, and if we do get asked something we don't want to talk about, we're quite happy to say I don't want to talk about that. But be curious, don't be afraid to ask questions. Something that I learned was checking in with mentors before they start, because it might be that somebody signed up to be a mentor and then I found them a pair a few months down the line, and just checking in with them to make sure that they're still up for that they're okay at the moment, and that they're ready to start mentoring somebody. Reviewing has been really helpful to us for picking up on things to tweak and improve the programme. And then sharing the learning and promote the benefits, and I think that's internally and externally, and obviously that's what we're doing today, but we also do that a lot within home group, and we're particularly looking at setting up reverse mentoring with some of the other protected characteristics, so we're sharing the learning from this as well to ensure that we can do that. Anybody want to add anything to the top tips? I think you all did help come up with them, so.
I think, sorry, it's Becky again. I think it's important to recognise your role, Renika, in coordinating it, and you know, somebody having that passion for the topic and the drive to do the pairing up and to do the reviews and checking in. So I think it is important that there's somebody leading the project, like you have for us.
Yeah, I think that's
I'd
probably.
agree with that. I mean, if it had just been passive, would I have got involved or not? But it was your prompt and the conversation with you that got me involved. And now I'm at the point where I'd say, okay, I'd love another mentor. Could we swap? Who else could I get involved? And how could we grow this both in our organisation and beyond? But it does need that sort of evangelist to get hold of it and make it happen. And I like the keep it simple and keep it really flexible, because we didn't very quickly. Myself and my mentor hit it off, and we didn't worry too much about the rules or anything, or even looked back at them. It just became very natural, very open conversations.
Great.
Megan here. I would totally echo what both Becky and Simon have added. I think your role in kind of supporting us has been a bit of a safety blanket. Provides a little bit of assurance when people maybe are particularly starting off in the process, particularly for mentors who may be unsure whether they're ready to share. The tip that I would give to anyone considering becoming a mentor would be definitely to assume positive intent. Anyone going into this process is doing so, it would be hoped, with an open mind and an open heart, and ready to learn and listen to views that might be different to their own, or to experiences that they've never heard before. I would just remember to, while we're encouraging questions from mentees, we also need to be prepared to assume that those questions are being directed in a positive light. Don't be too quick to make a negative judgment just because somebody hasn't experienced the things that you have. If they're willing to learn about it, then it's great to be willing to share.
Great. I think, that's a really good point, Megan. Thank you.
And
Okay.
on the same lines of what Megan said, I'd say, looking after yourself as well. Some of the things that we talk about can be quite upsetting. We're talking about lived experience of difficult circumstances sometimes. So take that time for yourself after sessions, and be really honest with yourself about whether you're in the right place with mental health to actually do the sessions, and to be flexible around that, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Becky. Anyone else from the panel? Nope. Should we move on to the last slide, which is any questions? So that's obviously opening up now to anybody that's signed in, to if you've got any questions, any attendees that would like to ask any members of the panel.
Yeah, we have had quite a few questions coming in actually, which is brilliant. And also, everyone, just remember that you do have the questions box there. If you haven't yet put your question in and you're left pondering after the webinar, thank you to all of you for doing that. I think that that was really, really insightful, and it's just good to be showcasing, you know, when things like this are happening, because in my opinion, it doesn't really happen enough. And this is a bit of a rarity at the moment. So hopefully having these conversations and making them more public will definitely get done, you know, eventually what needs to happen within the sector. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, actually, I'm not sure who it's best to direct it to, is what impact do you think this has had when it comes to your relationship with your customers? Because I think here at the CIH, and certainly when I've been out and about, I've heard, you know, some horror stories about, you know, tenants that haven't always felt comfortable in speaking to anyone, and, you know, when they could have gone and perhaps spoken to their landlord. So have you seen that this has kind of had an effect on the services you're offering and the support from a customer involvement experience?
I think maybe not the reverse mentoring on its own, but I certainly think our LGBT inclusion in general has had a really positive effect on our customers. So everybody that's in Pride at Home, which is the LGBT employee network, where we all wear rainbow lanyards, and that's definitely created quite a lot of discussions when we're out and about in our supported services or in our neighbourhoods, from customers either the LGBT plus customers may be clocking that we're wearing a rainbow lanyard for a reason, and that means that it's a safe space. And then we've had I've certainly had customers come out to me, and I know some of my colleagues have as well, when they've been wearing their lanyard. And also we have the allies wear rainbow pins. So again, that's a real visible sign to show that we are LGBT inclusive. And again, I do know customers that have either spoken to colleagues once they've seen that pin about themselves or about a family member or about somebody they're concerned about in the community. So I think it's definitely been a very visible show of inclusion at Home Group. Also, that lovely photo at the beginning of myself and Matt was in our Home Life magazine, and we did a little art which goes out to all our customers, and we did an article on reverse mentoring. We also cover a lot of things like the prides that we go to, and Idaho, and I think all these things together have, I'd say, have definitely raised the visibility of how inclusive Home Group is, and as certainly, in my experience, encouraged customers to be open about themselves as well. Becky, yeah. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, because you work a lot, don't you, with our customers and our supported services?
Yeah, a lot of what you've already said. I regularly get customers come out to me, and I'm the bisexual rep for our Pride network, so I get regular queries from support workers. Can I have a chat with this customer? You know, they ask if there's anything that I can say to help them in their sort of coming out journey. So I get asked for advice quite a lot. And colleagues are just generally really open and curious about what we can share. So yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's the question really right. I think that's the thing, isn't it, that you can't see these kind of programs in isolation. It's about that wider kind of culture change by the sounds of things, and then, you know, that kind of inclusivity, like you say, then rubs off onto customers, the services that you offer. And I think that that's great that you've got that. And the fact that this is, as mentioned, it's top down, well, bottom up and top down, isn't it? It runs through the whole organisation, which I think is really important.
I would add
absolutely.
as well, I mentioned, sorry, Renika, go on.
No, go on. No, go on.
I was just going to say about our role models. I mentioned it earlier. We have customer and colleague role models, straight, LGBT alike, and that's really important for representation. That gets seen all across the business, and we really do celebrate diverse cultures and diverse, you know, lifestyles. So yeah, it's celebrated here and put out there.
Okay,
and all
great.
I was going to add really was that our CEO and other members of the exec team do attend our local prides as well, Newcastle Pride, Cumbria Pride, and that's also something that we promote on Twitter and other social media platforms, and again in Home Life magazine, so that customers can see that it absolutely comes from the top, that support for LGBT inclusion.
Fantastic.
Megan here, I just wanted to add as well, I think naturally it impacts our customers, and the fact that we're having these conversations with the people who are leading our business and helping to lead the sector, we're opening their minds further, and their views on different experiences, and people from all walks of life. And I think in turn that only naturally leads on to our customers getting a greater experience as well, because we're really making sure that their views have a seat at the table and their views are considered in the decisions that we make. And while we make every effort to do that anyway, I think this programme only kind of helps to influence that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great, thank you. This is a really good question that's coming from one of our listeners actually. So, what kind of training and support do you provide for your mentors and mentees? Because I can imagine, when you're new into this, it can be something that's quite not daunting, or maybe it is daunting, because it is such a kind of new thing that you're doing. What training do you offer people to help them along the way?
We don't actually offer training. We offer guidance. I say we, that's usually me, but also I might, if somebody's new to it, I might link them with somebody that's been doing it for a while, just to be able to kind of get that peer support. I send out a guidance sheet which just kind of gives the benefits of reverse mentoring and a few ideas for the first meeting. I guess there's some training that we do. We have something called Life Swap as well at Home Group, where which is about stories, listening to people's stories. That's customers and colleagues, and that's very much about raising awareness of equality and diversity and inclusion across all protected characteristics and way beyond, and all the intersectionalities, as Megan was talking about before. And a lot of the mentors, quite a few of the mentors, are also life swappers. We do train our people that tell their stories and do life swap in telling your story in a safe way. Because as Becky mentioned, sometimes it is quite personal stuff that you're talking about, and you need to protect yourself when you're kind of sharing personal stories like that. So that's the only official training. And again, not all our mentors do life swap, so they haven't all had that training. So there is no official training.
Okay, so it's more kind of that support that you're all offering one another, I think, isn't it? And because it's hard to predict and map training for things like this, because it is going to be so personal, isn't it, to each individual?
Yeah, and I do also think maybe the culture is self-learned.
Yeah, self-led. Like, I've got the skills of and knowledge for being a bisexual person, so that's what I'm there to share. So it's not necessarily about having to learn a skill to be able to mentor. It's about already being that person, and being able to be yourself. So part of what I've learned and what I do differently is that I research more. So if there's something my mentee wants to know about, I'll learn it. So it's very much about taking the ownership of being a mentor, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it helped in my experience, because I was the novice to it, and I think my mentor wasn't. And I just don't know in terms of the pairing, if you've got somebody who's been there and done it, although that's not training, that's kind of helpful, because I would feel more comfortable and able to be able to be an effective mentee with someone else now that I've been through it. And you could do that rather than putting two novices together who don't really understand or get it or are struggling. And I felt, again, there's a support network here, because I know, like, I can just go and pick up the phone and help me out here, or what about, or questions, because we've created that openness. You can have those conversations here, which is really helpful.
I think also the fact that we know that the culture at Home Group is very open, and but we also do really encourage curiosity. So I think certainly as a mentor going in to meet a mentee, I think there isn't any kind of fear around, you know, are they going to have certain views? Are they going to, you know, be mean? I think because of the culture of home group is very open. That's maybe why I didn't think, oh, we need to put some training in place.
Yeah, okay, great. I think it's a really good point to make, like you say. So there's a few other questions here that I think kind of link into that. So you touched on it a little bit there about the matching process. So how do you go about bringing together a mentor and a mentee, or the kind of recruitment to get additional people into the scheme as well?
I mean, word of mouth means that we've got some people that just contact me and say they'd be really interested in doing it. From the mentor point of view, as I say, anybody that joins Pride at Home fills out a survey monkey, and they indicate whether they're interested or not. So then I'll go back to that survey and kind of find somebody that's in the right location and say, oh, somebody's come up now that is interested in being mentored. Are you still interested? We've got 2 new members of our exec that started a few months ago who are now ready to be mentored. One of them's just started being mentored, the other one starts next week. So I think, and interestingly, maybe like Simon said, maybe not exactly volunteers. I think it's expected now of the exec team, if somebody new joins, it's expected that they will take part in the reverse mentoring program, because it has been seen as such a valuable thing to be part of. I've not really had any problems finding enough people to take part, but we have kept it quite small. So there's probably only about 11 pairings at any one time. I think if we did a massive recruitment drive and hundreds of people wanted to take part, I don't think I could do that on my day job.
Yeah, I think that probably would be a slight challenge, no matter how committed you are. But I think, like you say, because you've got that culture there, and you know, it sounds like you know the scheme has kind of been a roaring success already. If it was to keep kind of growing, or you know, even like as you say, maybe extend itself to other protected characteristics as well, it sounds like, you know, it's about getting the right people involved. So where do you find the other Renikers across the business that might be keen to take some of that on? And it sounds like you've got the right kind of culture to be able to do that, which is really nice to hear. So one of the other things, I mean, what advice is probably more for maybe Megan and Becky, but what advice would you give to people that perhaps are in organisations where they don't feel that they've got that culture and that support from them, or you know, like how would you advise that people go about trying to force the issue a little bit if they're in an organisation that doesn't have that culture?
Megan here. I would definitely recommend, and we discussed recently at an internal conference, something along the same lines, the power of talking in pairs or in a group, identifying kind of other colleagues who you may feel a connection with, or who have a similar experience to you or a similar story to tell. And if you feel that actually there's a culture to challenge, you know, a bit of a conversation to have around how do we make this a more inclusive place to work, it's a lot easier to do and power in numbers. You then don't feel like the one being seen to call something out or push in for something more. It's a lot harder as well to turn down and refuse. If there's a group of people saying, actually, we think this is the right thing to do and we would like to make this change, it's a lot more likely to be met with success. And just be open and be honest about how you feel, which I appreciate can be difficult if you don't have that kind of culture, but it's about the bravery of taking the first step.
Anything to add from any of the other panelists on that?
I think this, sorry, it's Matt here. I would say something that works very well, and Renika is very good at, is just badgering individuals and asking them to do stuff, because you know, those little things that get done end up kind of moving the culture gradually forward to somewhere that it becomes quite developed. So you know, don't be afraid to ask.
So we need more Renikers. We'll clone you and put you out across the sector, Renika. It'll be great.
That would be great.
Yeah, definitely. I'd support that. So one of the things as well, I kind of think we might have touched on it a little bit, but probably more so for our mentees actually, but how has the kind of experience of doing the reverse mentoring raised your kind of own awareness of some of the issues that colleagues and customers might be facing?
Massively. It's one of those where, you know, I said I started out, Simon, I wasn't convinced of why I needed it when I had such a busy diary, you know, when it's jostling for priority with everything else. And it's one of those, you can't say whether you need it or not until you understand. And that sort of seeking to understand in the first place someone else's life and experiences, what they go through, was quite something to hear it as a very personal story and realize the challenges that my mentor had faced in their life. And there was somebody else in our organization, it's not a sexuality, but they're Muslim, and they said, this is the first organization I've been in, including all the schools, clubs, and everything they've been in, where they hadn't come across racism directed at them. And I was just stunned, because in my little world that doesn't really happen, so therefore you think it doesn't happen out there. And to listen to my mentee and their life story and the challenges they'd faced was really an eye-opener. It's only when you get that can you understand, to be able to be in a position to help others. So you then look around you at other people who are out in our organization, you think some of the challenges that they have faced in their life and still face out there in society, and then what can we do to support it? And the first step of it all is understanding.
Yeah, and I mean, what advice would you, well, I don't know whether it's advice or encouragement to people perhaps in similar positions that maybe initially think, well, you know, I don't have a problem, or maybe that this isn't even an issue anymore, that you know, it has had a blind eye turned to it. How would you try and go about getting more of those people to get involved in things like this elsewhere?
I think testimony from both mentees and mentors to their experience, you know, so we've heard David Beckins and said this is the first place that I can be openly out, and to hear things like that and to have that as a testimony going out to other organisations or other places to say this is their experience, and for people like myself as a convert from a slightly cynical, oh well, I'll do it, to feel quite strongly about it, and I would like to see it happen in other organisations. And to get that story out, I think, would be helpful. And the other bit of it is you've just got to have a go.
Well, I suppose for a lot of people, it's that kind of acknowledgement, isn't it? And I think the more, hopefully today's webinar will be a start, but the more we can kind of showcase some of the good stuff that's happening, hopefully then it kind of raises that awareness, I guess, as well. Actually, maybe, you know, just to question yourself a little bit and think, oh, maybe I do, you know, need to look into something like that, or what are my own organisation and colleagues doing to support across the board. Yeah, okay, great.
I think recognising privilege is really important for those organisations that aren't doing it and don't see the need. They're coming at it from a very privileged position, and opening themselves up to hearing from queer people would probably help them to understand that.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, recognising the strength that diversity, I think, can bring as well to an organisation, which, you know, sounds like it's definitely happening at Home Group, but we can see, can't we, from a lot of the reports coming out about who sits on the boards of housing associations, who's, you know, in senior positions within the sector, you know, right across the board. You know, and all of the research that's been done to show actually that having that diversity of thought and people is a massive strength. I don't know, you know, whether or not this is fed into other kind of areas of the business, like your succession planning maybe, or, you know, trying to encourage people from different backgrounds to progress within the organisation or elsewhere.
Yeah, we have a leadership program
certainly.
called Being Brilliant that Becky mentioned that she's on, and that was very much targeted at people and groups that are underrepresented in our senior leader and business leader roles. And we've also had a Women into Leadership program as well at Home Group. So
yeah, I was part of that one, Renika.
Great.
Okay, fantastic. So, I mean, I suppose this is a good one to kind of start finishing off with then, but if all of you were to give kind of one piece of advice to the sector on how to kind of start really tackling the issue of inequality and trying to promote stuff like this, what would it be? We want to take it in turns to give your one pearl of wisdom before we leave. Should we start with you, Matt? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Go on, Matt, that gives me thinking time.
Yeah,
for a pearl of wisdom.
Go on, Simon.
What have we still got, Matt?
Oh, so well, I think my one piece of advice would be, well, I'll give two, but I think for people who are in management positions, it would be just get involved in that whole diversity conversation, because you'll end up with a better organisation as a result. And for people who might be in the kind of mentee type role, just agitate and make things happen, because you will find that there are people who are very open to help and probably just need prodding in the right direction, like Simon and I.
Okay, that leads nicely into you then, Simon.
Yeah, so I'm going to cheat a bit and take Matt's second one, in that I think a bit of prodding and poking by one or two people like you, Renikers, who are prepared to just get out there and put it in front of people like me, because I think what you've got is, in lots of organizations, you've just got lots of relatively passive people who don't think there's a problem, like myself. So I wasn't objecting to do it, but I wasn't in a position that I was going to make it happen myself. But when it was landed in front of me, it did. So it's that kind of, you need one or two people to just go out and do it. And I think there's something which I'm struggling how to articulate it, but creating sort of these safe spaces where, people feel like they can have the difficult conversations, because some of our conversations we had were quite incredible, but where you feel like you start creating this culture where people can ask those questions, can have those conversations, and can come out, because that then generates more people feeling comfortable to have the conversation, and that kind of multiplies.
Okay, good. The advice is going well so far. So no pressure, Becky, but what one piece of advice would you give to the sector?
Don't be afraid to try it. For the mentors and the mentees, it's a really brilliant thing. We can all learn and we can all share our experiences, and don't be afraid, just do it.
Good. Megan, there should be some advice left, I'm sure everybody hasn't mentioned it all already.
Okay, so I've got one extra to add. Mine would be, don't rest on your laurels. Don't ever think that you've done enough, that you've had the conversation enough times, that you've invested in diversity enough, that you're inclusive enough, because there is always something more that can be done, and there is always another way to expand and grow. I mean, we did come top in the sector in the Stonewall Index this year. That doesn't mean that we've stopped and thought, great, we're doing well. We're pushing further and further, and we're expanding it across all the protected characteristics. And I think part of the reason that we do succeed and are doing well with, our agenda to make sure that diversity and inclusion are firmly at the table in any important conversations, is because we recognise that we will never be finished.
Brilliant. That's really inspirational. I'm going to try and not get too passionate about it. But Renika, last but not least, this was kind of your baby by the sounds of it. So as the real champion here, what kind of one bit of advice would you leave for the sector as well?
I guess it's, don't wait around for someone else to do something. If you have a good idea, you have a passion for wanting to set something up in the organisation, wherever you are in that organisation, you don't need to be a senior leader. I'm not, and yet I've been able to set this up, and it's and Home Group have totally embraced it. So don't wait around for someone else to do stuff. If you've got the passion to do something and an idea, go for it.
Okay, great. Well, you're going to have to pardon the pun here, but I think that you should all be really proud of what you've achieved. I think, it's something that at the moment the sector, equality and diversity, is still something that isn't probably fully understood. And, certainly when you look into all of the reports and things that are coming out, quite often it talks about those headline characteristics and then, isn't extended to things like LGBTQ+, etc. So I think that you should all be incredibly proud of what you've done. And I'm just delighted that we've been able to sit and listen to you all today. I'm sure that all of the attendees have found it incredibly useful. We will share contact details and slides after the webinar today, so that if anybody does want to get in touch and find out more, by the sounds of things, our panellists would be more than happy to answer any questions offline that people want to ask. And you know, just kind of the call at the end of this really to everybody is, don't let this be the end of the conversation. You know, sometimes you have to be the change you want to see, and I think that that's what you basically alluded to, Renika. So yeah, can't thank you enough really. So as I say, we'll send it all round afterwards. The recording will be available. Please do share with colleagues and other members so that they can hear firsthand what's been going on with this really incredible scheme, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of the work from you guys in the next few months as well. Right, thanks everybody, and we'll see you on the next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.